Yes, sir.
Okay, we're live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the November 12th meeting of the Downtown Development Authority. I would ask the staff to call the roll, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Greg Ballline. Kristen Clark.
Present.
Jim.
Could I just mention for a second, I think we may have to say our procedure of present, participating via video from East Lansing, Michigan. Sorry about that. Just a quick reminder.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Thank you. So those members present, if you could please state your name and the city, county, or township, along with the state of where you're attending from and that you're attending remotely, would be helpful. Thank you. So Greg Ballline. No, Kristen Clark.
Attending by video from East Lansing, Michigan.
Jim Kroom. Peter Dewan.
Attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Luke Hackney. Michael Kruger.
Looks like Mike is joining.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Sir.
Okay.
Michael, if you wouldn't mind, could you please state the city and state of, and if you're attending remotely?
Yep, remotely from East Lansing, Michigan.
Thank you. George Lahanas.
Present, attending remotely via video from East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Thank you. Ruben Levinson. Jeff Smith.
Present, attending remotely via East Lansing and the great county of Ingham.
Thank you. And Mayor Stevens.
Present, attending remotely from East Lansing, Michigan.
Thank you. And that completes the roll call.
Great. Thank you, Chad. We have the agenda as presented by staff. Are there any changes to our agenda?
Chair, there was a, excuse me, a last minute add under agenda item 8.1. It's just a referral letter from the Planning Commission regarding 300 West Graham.
Okay. We'll make that change with the agenda as presented. I move that it be accepted with the change and ask for a second.
Second.
Been seconded by Mayor Stevens. All those in favor of the agenda say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda's been accepted unanimously. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes from our October 22nd meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I offer a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the October 22nd meeting and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by George. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes from the October 22nd meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Just a quick correction and clarification, Peter. It was George's twin brother, Jeff, that made the second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We look alike, so.
Your voices sound very similar.
It's okay.
So it's been approved by Jeff, and the minutes have been accepted unanimously. We will move on to our financial reports. The October 2020 financial report. Adam, are you going to discuss that?
I'll take that, Chair, if that's all right.
I'm sorry, Ed.
Sure. Wait for it to populate on the screen here. Okay, there's just one thing of noteworthy or of note on the first page there. You'll see the $1,000 revenue that was from the Monday's street food truck. And then scrolling down to the next page, you see a negative for the wages. If you remember from our October meeting, there was a journal entry for the $1,800 that needed to correct the outdoor dining overage, and that's what that is there. So then for the month of October, near the bottom here, our project development fund was $23,7521. for the month of October. And that was largely some curbside dining signage and mask ambassador supplies from the We Have You Covered program. And then just at the very bottom, the repairs and maintenance, that was a $700. Adam, could you please go up one? The $700 at the bottom there, that was for the approved at the October 15th Executive and Finance Committee meeting, and that was to power wash the refuse rooms. So we spent $700 there. And as you can see, this is mostly business as usual here on the last page. And then when we get to the treasurer's report, there's the $1,800 journal entry that was recorded, giving us a 0 encumbrance for outdoor dining. So we're all set with that account. We spent $2,180.21 for that signage, the downtown banners that you see on the Marriott Skywalk, and like I said, the mask ambassador supplies. And that pretty much completes the overview there. Is there any questions?
Are there questions of staff? Thank you, Chad, for that presentation. Are you also going to address the bond payment schedule?
I'm gonna tag Adam in for this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm 2
Thank
for
you,
2
Chair.
here. Thanks.
Yeah,
Adam.
we've, at the request of DDA, we've included the bond payment schedule here for your reference, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Are there any questions of Adam on the bond schedule? Hearing none, let's go on to our written communications. We have in our packet the letter we sent to council with regard to support of Ordinance 1492. We also have an analysis from LEAP on the business relief program that we conducted earlier in the year. At this time, I'd like to open up comments from the public, if there's anyone that wishes to address the DDA. And Chad, can you tell us if there's anyone in the queue?
Absolutely. We have 4 attendees in the queue. We'll begin with caller with the last 3 digits of 629. Caller with the last 3 digits of 629, you're going to be unmuted and given 5 minutes to speak. And if you do not wish to speak, please just say pass. So caller 629, you have been unmuted. And your 5 minutes begins now. Caller 629, would you like to speak? Okay, well.
Pass, please.
Thank you. We'll move on to caller 963. Caller 963, you'll be unmuted and given 5 minutes to speak. So caller 963, you've been unmuted and your time begins now.
Hi, this is Alice Dreger from 621 Sunset Lane. In 2017, when the Center City bonds were paid out, they included $875,000 in origination costs. Of those origination costs, about 86% went to the developers or their affiliates. That included a whopping $353,000 for the Developers Council, Dyke-Magassett. It also included $115,000 for the Developers Financial Advisor, Brian Leffler of Robert W. Baird & Company. I'm hearing from a lot of people who are extremely upset that the bonds now, the bond resolution currently passed by the BRA is set to do the same thing again. If you read carefully the bonding resolution that you all passed in September, when you were told there was a risk of default, which Mr. Danhoff now told City Council this week, that's not actually true. The bond resolution that you passed allows for paying your own side, your own advisors and council money, which makes sense. But it also includes paying a placement agent an unspecified amount of money. That placement agent, from what I can ascertain from the conversations and the material available, is Brian Leffler again of Robert W. Baird & Company. And in addition to that, there is the allowance to pay $140,000 to whomever. And from what I can ascertain, that money is going to go to be paid in part to Harbor Bay Real Estate, or HVBM, for no apparent reason. I think there is a legitimate question here to be raised as to why the BRA is paying people who are either working for the other side, who really ought to be paying for their own advisors and legal costs. And certainly why you would pay the developer at this point. The developer is not a party to this bond. The developer is no part of this bond. You have no relationship, as I realize I'm speaking to you all as the DDA, but that's because the BRA isn't meeting. The BRA has no relationship with the developer at this point. The BRA simply has a relationship with the bond holders, present and future. And so why you're taking public money and paying this out is, I think, a legitimate question. The other question that's been raised by Mr. Meadows, which I continue to believe is quite appropriate from a legal point of view, is whether or not you're creating bad paper when you're making these payments. The reason being that the bonds can only be paid out of the TIF, and the TIF is statutorily limited as well as being limited by the Brownfield plan. The Brownfield plan does not allow for willy-nilly payments to the developer. And so you can pay these things out of bond, but there's essentially no mechanism to repay it. If that is the case, it involves the creation of bad paper. And I think this is a legitimate question to be raised. Mr. Danoff has, to some extent, responded to some of that stuff, but certainly not to all of it, as far as I can tell. And I think you ought to be very cautious. The person who appears to have signed off on the payments from 2017 was Tim Dempsey, who was then the director of planning. I don't have any reason to believe Tim Dempsey would have intentionally done something wrong. Therefore, I believe he was misled. And I think we are about to be misled again. I think there's a really good question of whether or not you should be dealing with Baird in this deal. I'm not going to say a lot more than that, other than to say I've turned up some things that make me feel that you should be extremely cautious, let's put it that way, when dealing with that particular party. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Thank you. Next caller is caller with the last three digits, 705. Caller 705, you'll be unmuted and given 5 minutes to speak. And if you do not wish to speak, please just say pass. Caller 705, you've been unmuted. If you do not wish to speak, please say pass. Okay, thank you.
Chad, you're muted.
Thank you. Moving on, the next caller in the queue is Matt Burks. Matt, I'm going to unmute you and you'll be given 5 minutes to speak. And if you do not wish to speak at this time, please say pass.
Pass.
Okay, thank you, Matt. That completes all the callers.
Okay, thank you callers for calling in. We will move on our agenda, close the public comment portion of the meeting to communications from staff. And I believe, is it Adam, are you going to discuss the business support program?
Yes, sir.
Trailer. I'm
Okay.
just playing with cars.
Okay.
I'm gonna run to the grocery store to go get you dish.
All right. So as you guys, as the DDA may recall, during our last discussion, our last meeting, $75,000 was approved towards the place project, the daytime, nighttime, anytime place project, to help with business support programming and other downtown activities. Today, I just want to provide y'all with an update where we're at. We've already discussed this past and present programming the last time. What you're seeing now is a presentation I gave to City Council on Tuesday this week. And so I just kind of went over the direct versus indirect assistance that we discussed last time. Introduced them to the concept of the project here with this slide, but then here's where things have evolved and changed since the last time we came together and spoke, and that is the locations. If you'll see here, Valley Court has been removed at this time. That's because of the anticipated construction that will occur. And it's also a heavy utilized space already. And so we're going to be working with various external and internal groups on any ideas that we can do to activate that space. As for the other locations, we still have the Mac parking garage, the elevated plaza outside the Marriott, the Division Street garage under the overhang, Ann Street Plaza, Bill Sharp Park, and the 500 block pedestrian alleyway. You guys have seen this rendering, our vision of the market from our last presentation. And then since the last time we met, we staff along in collaboration and coordination with the Arts Commission with Wendy Rowan. She's been really fabulous and excited about this project. And she actually designed the triangle art installation on the interior walls of the parking garage. And then she completed the painting herself of the stairwell, one of the exits that we have planned. We're able to stretch resources. We using internal staff, we volunteered and we went and we chalked out the triangles and then we filled in the gaps with the appropriate paint. We're just trying to brighten it up, activate the space, make it a little more vibrant. This you haven't seen. This is an updated rendering or a new rendering of location 2, the elevated plaza at the Marriott. This is the vision that we have. You can see that we're looking to really activate this underutilized public space and turn it into a very interesting public place. We're going to put seating, heating elements, and some other attributes to make it comfortable and as safe as possible during this time. Here's the Division Street garage rendering. Again, we're just looking to activate the space with seating, heating elements, and plenty of art installations to make it an interesting place. Different view of the Division Street garage, still allowing the universal access to 5 feet, and again, designed for distancing. And here's a big update with the budget and a phased approach. So, based on our conversation last time, I did hear some comments about, considering a phased in approach. And we originally didn't propose that because we view this as all being really interconnected and to have the greatest bang for our buck and greatest impact to our downtown businesses. We wanted to activate everything all at once because, again, it's all kind of working together. But we went back to the drawing board and we figured out a way to phase in this project in a way that protects us and allows us to kind of do trial and error and kind of wait as well until we complete the funding, getting all the funding for the project. And so phase 1 is primarily infrastructure purposes for all the places except for the temporary pop-ups we have planned for spring and summer, and then Bell Sharp Park, and then some city programming, pop-up farmers market, and special pop-up events. Some money's dedicated towards that as well in architecture and engineering. And so that would come in around $60,000. And so the good thing about this is we can purchase this infrastructure, it can be placed and it can be utilized, and we can also press pause and not get ourselves in a place where we purchase stuff that we can't use. We can still use this stuff before we go to phase 2. Phase 2 would come into play after we finish raising all the funds, where we would put significant light installations at various locations, including the elevated plaza. We'd continue the farmers market, continue plenty of special pop-up events. We've really been talking to the public library system. They have very excited about doing some limited programming down in the garage, as well as K through 12 art. We had a really good call, I believe it was on Tuesday this week, with half a dozen art teachers, K through 12 in East Lansing, who are also very excited about the possibility of doing pop-up art displays and rotating art displays on a monthly basis. All this is being designed in a way to activate and help the downtown businesses with the revenues and try to get that foot traffic in the door. And so some of the concepts behind the pop-up art displays would be to reach out to businesses and see who would be interested in allowing these pop-ups in their actual place of business to draw people in. The Vision Street Garage also have a light installation in phase 2, as well as Ann Street Plaza. And with Ann Street Plaza and the elevated plaza, you're looking at pretty significant installation of string lighting. And then with the Division Street Garage, we're still looking at options for different options for lighting under there. Again, we can press pause at any point in time with these phases. Phase 3 is where we would put a significant light installation in at the Skywalk, connecting the parking garage to Marriott Hotel, continue with some city programming, and then start to activate Bill Sharp Park. And Bill Sharp Park also includes light installation as well. Phase 4, continue with some pop-up events, but then we're getting in the spring and summer, and so the infrastructure purchase for the Mac parking garage will be repurposed for our temporary pop-up parklets, and then any additional infrastructure would be made available to businesses through an application process. And then we're also still investigating, researching the pop-up chalets and how can we make that happen, making sure that it's a good return on investment. So we're evaluating the feasibility of that, evaluating the cost versus benefit. And so the big takeaway from this is we now have a phased-in approach where we think we can press pause as we need to. We're designing this to be very flexible and adaptable to public health orders, to our business needs, our downtown needs, in a way that we can draw people down and not large crowds, and then be able to press pause as needed. Funding sources, again, very generously, DDA allocation is $75,000. We've obtained a grant through BWL at $5,000. And so we're at a gap at just under $80,000. And that takes us to a pretty significant update. This is a motion that was proposed and passed and approved on Tuesday night at council. We were seeking $10,000 contribution to a public spaces, community places crowdfunding campaign. So the thought is we can raise $40,000 and MEDC will match us the other $40,000. That will help fill our $80,000 project gap. The city council allocation would be the first monies donated to the crowdfunding effort. And so that would automatically take it down to $30,000 that we still need to raise. And so that's a very high level overview of the updates on this initiative, this project since last time we spoke. And so happy to take any questions.
I have a question, Adam. I didn't see the entire council meeting, and I know that they did appropriate $10,000. I think when it left the DDA last time, we were asking the council to consider matching our contribution of $75,000. Was that discussion held at the council level, or perhaps Mayor Stevens can speak to that?
It was not held at the council level.
That was not brought up at the council, no.
No. We were trying to come up with an approach that we think could have worked, and this is what we came up with. Sorry.
Yeah, so if you could drill down a little bit further, how are we intending on raising the additional $30,000?
Good question. Yeah, so we would be doing the public spaces, community places crowdfunding campaign. And we're gonna use our marketing, our social media handles, our city communication staff to help get the word out to raise these funds. We're gonna work with other boards and commissions, and we're hoping to work with the neighborhood associations as well. The thought behind this is this approach will really tell us whether or not, the community as a whole, this is something they want to see in the downtown. And so getting donations through the community really engages us and gives us an understanding of what their interest level is in this project.
So are you going to be approaching like businesses that have regularly contributed to like downtown events, like organizations like that? No, sorry, not businesses in our downtown, like more entities like MSUFCU or other folks that have sponsored city events in the past?
Correct. Yes. So we've been holding off on contacting some of these entities just because wanted to get, first we got DDA buy-in and council buy-in, but now we're circling back around with DDA to see where their comfort level is with where the project is at. And so basically after this meeting, and once we get the application approved by patronicity and MEDC, we would pull the trigger and start reaching out to folks.
Okay.
Like MSU, FCU, and others.
So Adam, given the pledge of support that you have presently, are we prepared to kick this off prior to the holidays, or when would this happen?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chair. So let me pull this back up. So as you can see, phase one, we designed this so that we would come under budget with our current budget right now. And so if we were to implement all phase one today, it would cost us, with contingency included, around $62,000. And so that would leave us with about $18,000 left in our current budget, so that we could kick off before the holidays. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, no, so given the fact that we've at least been able to successfully finance phase one, that's going to begin before the holidays and last until when? Or can you just maybe drill down a little bit on the time frame for me?
Yes, sir. So phase one, we've already started. We have painted the interior of the garage. We've met with fire. We've met with all the appropriate stakeholders to ensure compliance. And we started purchasing the hard infrastructure for phase one. And so, yeah, we're going to start placing infrastructure in these places as it comes in, and we have a complete set of things. So yeah, phase one is in progress at the moment, and we hope to get everything lined up in time for the holidays. However, I do want to let you know that we had a conversation with the Ingham County Health Department this morning, and at where we're at this point, because the numbers are spiking currently, we are going to hold off because we had planned a November 22nd pop-up farmers market at the Mac parking garage, and the timing's not right because of COVID. And this plan is designed to be able to be flexible and adaptable to these situations, and so we can press pause. What you're seeing here, location one, is a temporary location to get us through winter. The farmers market pop-up events, we had 3 scheduled. We're going to reevaluate, see how many we can do once the COVID situation changes. Location 2 is a permanent installation that's not going anywhere. So it may look different as time goes on, and we learn through trial and error through implementing this project, but that's a permanent location we're activating along with location 3. Location 4 is already activated. We're just going to enhance it with permanent infrastructure. Same with Bill Sharp Park and the 500 block pedestrian alleyway. So the locations 1 through 6 that you see here, there's only one temporary location, which is the Mac parking garage, which we fully intend on using next winter as well. And then the other temporary locations will just be those temporary pop-up parklets that we're going to do in spring and summertime, as well as the pop-up chalets.
So, yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Adam. Just one additional follow-up question, and hopefully the spikes in COVID will be dramatically reduced, but we will just have to see how that progresses. What was the next scheduled pop-up farmers market beyond the November 22nd date? And I recognize this all contingent upon hopefully diminishing the impact of the virus.
Absolutely. November 22nd and then December 6th. And then there was one in February. The exact date escapes me. And so after the conversation with Ingham County Health this morning, we're continuing on. We're plugging away because as soon as we're not, because we could have the farmers market on the 22nd. The question is whether or not we should. And so we feel like we should not. And so we're going to continue to plug away, and we're going to be prepared to pull the trigger on these pop-up events, farmers markets, as soon as the time is right. And so we're going to continue to just evaluate. We're going to get with the team again next week and come up with some alternative dates to work towards.
Okay, thank you. And you'll continually apprise us on how the progress of this is advancing, not only in the programming, but also in the monies that are being raised, and if there's any action needed by the DDA.
Absolutely. And another thing, I'm in the process of updating the project proposal we went over last time because things have changed a little bit since then. And so I'll also provide you guys with an updated copy of that and get it posted to a DDA agenda as soon as it is complete.
Okay, you've put a lot of really hard work, Adam. Thank you. Are there additional questions from board members for Adam?
I've got one.
Hearing none.
Mike.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Or sorry, Michael.
Yep. Adam, as far as the MEDC, and again, first I want to say, yes, you're doing an awesome job. Echo Peter's sentiments, that you're putting a ton of work into this, and it's looking really good. But my question is there a requirement for the MEDC grant match that this type of crowdsourcing project has to be put on social media, for example, to solicit public donations? Or is it worth maybe not doing that until conversations have been had with, key stakeholders in the community, such as MSU, SU, et cetera, before we go publicly asking for money from residents who probably already feel like they're paying enough in taxes as it is, and that the city should be funding this, 100% already. I worry about the backlash for it.
Definitely concern. These are getting more and more common campaigns, and the thought behind it is it's community driven, community based, and really, if the community wants something, then the community is going to, donate towards this cause. It doesn't always have to be financial; it could be promoting it, and that's the thought behind it. It's been challenging to really engage with stakeholders virtually throughout all this, and we thought it would be a really good way to engage the community. However, there's always concern that obviously that we won't meet the crowdfunding campaign goal. I do have a certain level of confidence in that, but there's no guarantees, obviously.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Any additional questions? All right, we'll look forward to additional developments, and again, really appreciate all the hard work you put into this. We will move on in our agenda. We have no business agenda other than unfinished business. Item 8.1, which is the consideration of the application to modify the site plan. Yes, Adam?
Yes, Chair, we do have item 6.1.
I'm so sorry. Item 6.1, the informational meeting on the DDA projects. Adam?
Yeah, let me bring that screen back up. So we just held our other informational meeting, I believe it was in September. Act 57, our DDA is required to have 2 informational meetings to share our projects that have been completed and that we're anticipating in the future. And so we've invited the taxing jurisdictions to this meeting to hear about that. And so not much has changed since September. Here's a list of the projects that we completed, 2019, 2020. And then here's the moving forward to 2020, 2021, where we added the business support programming, the place project here. And so if there's any questions, happy to take questions on these.
Are there any questions? All right. Thank you, Adam. Now I think we can move on to item 8.1. The application to modify the site plan for 300 West Grand River, the Gateway of East Lansing LLC. And Adam, are you going to address that item? I believe, or Mr. Haywood, is he on the line?
Looks like Jake's on the line and Mr. Haywood.
Okay, and the last we talked about this, the Planning Commission was going to take action. So perhaps Mr. Haywood could speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Jake Parcell is here. He can give you a quick overview of the proposal, and then I can give you kind of an update on what the Planning Commission's recommendation to council is.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome.
I'm sorry, you cut out, Peter.
Welcome, Jake.
Thank you. Yeah, so we discussed this at, I think, 3 different Planning Commission meetings. Eventually, the proposal here is to convert the western portion of the building from retail to 6 units. There were some facade changes involved to kind of add windows to pseudo-residential use rather than a retail use, and to help screen the units a little bit more from potential lights on the road. The entrance and the revised plans for it now goes through the leasing office, so there won't be 6 doors on the outside of the building there. There's a small hallway in between them. And then there is a condition of approval that Dave will get to in a minute when he sums everything up, but that says they'll have to lease a parking space off-site. So parking should be accommodated for on site. There were a couple questions last time, but I'm open for questions first before we dive in any further on this.
So I have a number of questions, and it's just because I wasn't real clear on the conversation that occurred at the Planning Commission. I believe there was some discussion about low to moderate income housing and whether or not these units potentially are barrier free and able to be accommodate those residents that may have barrier free needs.
Yeah, so there were 2, Dave can cover this, but there are 2 conditions of approval that covered that he can touch on.
Right. So this kind of goes back to our requirement for diversified housing and multifamily projects in the downtown. And they can meet that in a couple of different ways. It can either be age restricted to 55 and older, income qualifying, or some other type of housing that brings a product that's not generally available in the downtown. So 25% of the 6, rounded up as 2. So we would require that 2 of those meet the diversified housing requirement. The applicant created an argument that they would have some difficulty in marketing 2 of those units for either age restricted or income qualifying. So they they negotiated with the planning commission, and the planning commission finally said, well, if you can't meet those 2 categories, why don't you make them all accessible units? Basically like type A units where they're fully accessible. And the applicant said, okay, that we can try that, but then they came with a proposal that limited a few things, like they didn't fully meet the shower requirement and some of the grab bar requirements, and I think one other issue. So they got close but didn't meet all of the requirements, and the planning commission said that they had trouble agreeing to that, and would rather see, and their recommendation to the council is that they meet all type A units, or if they don't meet the type A requirements, then they have to provide one of the other categories of age restricted or income qualified. So that's kind of where the planning commission landed on that issue.
Okay. And so the planning commission's recommendation was to go ahead and allow the residential conversion, provided
sorry to interrupt you, but they've ultimately understood the difficulty in marketing this property for full commercial. The applicant has been advertising the property for commercial, so they I'll say reluctantly agreed to the proposal, as long as they could provide either all type A units or meet the diversified housing in the other 2 categories.
Are there questions of staff? The principal motivation for the conversion is the difficulty in leasing the units for commercial purposes.
That's my understanding.
Notwithstanding living through a pandemic.
That's my understanding, correct?
Yes.
There was some discussion about the size of the individual units. There are 6 units, and they would be, what's the square footage of each unit?
I think they're right around 400 square feet.
Yeah, they're efficiency units.
Do you have an idea of what the going lease is for these units?
Not for the units, no.
No. They didn't provide, they did not provide how much they would be renting the units for.
Well, it's all speculative, but would it be fair to say that leasing 6 residential units is going to command a greater return of rent than would leasing 2,400 square feet for commercial use?
I would not be able to speculate on that specifically. I do know that they advertised their, I think we talked about this at the PNI meeting, and that they advertised their commercial square footage. I think the bottom end of that was somewhere around, I want to say $25 a square foot, somewhere around there.
$28 per square foot per year.
Okay.
I think Heather weighed in. It was a triple net lease.
Yes.
That's correct.
Is
Yeah.
Heather?
Yes, that's correct. It was triple net.
Okay. Well, I don't know what the pleasure of the board is. I understand we're just simply making a recommendation to council. And clearly I don't want to be in a position where I'm preventing the owner of being able to yield some type of return on their investment. And it's difficult to lease spaces and particularly survive during COVID. So, but I'm not thrilled with the idea that we're taking space that was originally dedicated towards retail and converting it into residential, because I think we're setting a precedent that could be held all the way up and down Grand River. The fact that this location is adjacent to a residential neighborhood and adjacent to a residential portion as far as condos makes me a little more comfortable. But I generally, the way I feel about it is I would prefer that we not encourage council to convert these to a residential use. But I'm sympathetic and I respect that the owner of the property has to get tenants.
To quell some concern on that, I think it's not really going to set much of a precedent there just because the zoning district changes. This is in B2, but once you get into Grand River and really the heart of the downtown, it's all B3. So it ups in zoning intensity shortly a couple parcels over from here. So it's a unique one where it's the very edge of the zoning district, the very edge of the DDA, and in a different zoning district than B3. So I don't think there should be a ton of concern about additional ground floor residential. That's just me, but.
I think when this was originally proposed and approved by the various boards and commissions, and with the support of the neighborhood, the adjacent neighborhood, it was with the understanding that this would provide a diversity of locations and businesses for which the community could walk to and shop at. And again, at the end of the day, the owner of the property needs to have tenants. I understand that. So I'm just throwing it out there. Would we have gone ahead and approved all this if it was residential from the onset?
Peter, I kind of share the same concerns. I feel like across the street, there's some food or flowers or something. And if those leases fall through, will we be visiting that owner to have those converted into residential spaces too?
Well, I think that's a very good point, Kristen, and I think we're establishing the precedence. Heather?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, I believe the applicant is on the line. So if you wanted to ask some of your questions specifically to the applicant, I think Chad could unmute and introduce them.
Yeah, I will try to do so.
All right, this is Matt Birch from Studio Intrigue Architects. I do not necessarily have the information to answer those questions. Chuck was on the line, but I think he was having trouble unmuting from the phone.
Thank you, Matt. So are you able to respond to the questions about the difference in the lease?
I don't have it. I don't have any of that information.
I mean, I think it's a fair question. Is there the possibility of the commercial space being leased if the rent that's being requested was reduced? And again, I don't pretend to suggest that this is easy whatsoever, but I'm just curious. When we look down the road and hopefully we are post-COVID, we don't have the opportunity to go back and say, yeah, wouldn't it be great to have these spaces used for commercial retail? And we're committing them to a residential use, and I'm questioning, is that what we really want to do? Are there any other board members that have a comment or an opinion? Yeah, Jeff?
I think I brought it up last time. You know, it may be just a simple discussion around, you know, not every one of our buildings need to be mixed use, right? We can get to a comfort level of where our first floor retail should start or stop, or where there's a mix and where it should be highly concentrated. You know, if this is at the edge, do we feel good about, you know, this being the edge of where we want retail on the first floor? If that's the case, then that's fine. If not, you know, if our, you know, future land use map shows that we want first floor retail to keep extending further down, then I think that the choice is simple.
Thanks, Jeff. You were cutting out there a little bit on the end. George?
Yeah, so I am not generally favorable to first floor residential anywhere near the downtown. You know, I also don't want to start converting back retail spaces to housing, but I do think that this sort of does create a rather unique situation because it is right at the end of a residential district where it turns into commercial. I also was present for the conversations when this building was coming through the planning process, and the people who live next door in the condos, townhouses, did express concern about having residential so close and the use and the hours. And being that this is sort of that transition there, I do think that perhaps it is not a bad use of the space. But I have the concerns. I don't think this is something that should be replicated all over the downtown at all. But I do think that in this one area, perhaps it does create a different circumstance because of the very limited impact of it. If you were to say to move the other side where the coffee shop is to I would say absolutely not. But because it is a portion of the building closest to the residential, that perhaps it is not unreasonable to request.
Michael?
Yep. So my comment was going to be similar along the line of George's there, because I know that there is interest in the properties across where the old Big B used to be, is the empty lot currently. And so I know that there's some interest in development on this entire block, and so yes, I would be concerned that we would set precedents. But if you're saying the dividing line would be, you know, the road over there, then, you know, I guess I can live with it because I understand that it's residential sort of on the backside of the current Big B. So, but Peter, I echo your concerns that we're setting the precedent that we're setting for, you know, potentially, I think Kristen mentioned the buildings across the street. If they can't, you know, get retail to where the old Conrad's and flower shop used to be, then are they going to want to put residential in there too? And you know, I'm not here to say that's necessarily a terrible thing or not. I just think setting the precedent would be a concern.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's my computer. You were cutting out at the end there, Michael, but we talk about this as on the edge, and it's a unique location, and then your business, Michael, is all of less than a block. So does that then become the edge? You know, if God forbid that my favorite restaurant was not available to go to on the weekends and is converted into housing, then does that become the edge? And then we get over to, you know, the Evergreen Street. I mean, I have a real hard time with and concern with setting the wrong precedent, but I'm respectful of everyone else's comments. I think, Jake, you want to add something additional?
Yeah, I just want to provide some backup from what Commissioner Smith said, and he mentioned the future land use map. As M3, which is this is designated for residential is allowed on the ground floor as a special use. and it's next to the lowest density R1 district. They're adjacent parcels, so just something to consider for future land use purposes. I know that wasn't involved in any of the communication we sent you, I don't think, but since you mentioned that, I thought I would go dig up the map really quick.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Are there additional comments from board members or questions of staff? I don't see any or hear anyone. Are we willing to offer a motion to council on this?
So I'm happy to make a motion. I talked about my opinion on this item a little bit at the previous meeting. I will make a motion, and if it doesn't get a second, then that's okay. I suppose since I have the privilege of being on the city council, I will see it again soon. Anyway, so I'll make a motion to recommend to the city council to approve an application to modify a site plan and special use permit from Gateway of East Lansing LLC for the property of 300 West Grand River Avenue to convert retail space on the first floor to 6 dwelling units, and that is conditional on the Planning Commission's recommendations as well.
Thank you, Mayor Stevens. It's been moved to support a recommendation of approval to the city council. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Jeff Smith. Any further discussion on your motion, Mayor Stevens?
I suppose I will be having this conversation again sometime soon. I think that based on the previous conversation, what we were really looking for was a little bit more guidance from the Planning Commission. I think we got that guidance and they recommended it unanimously. And I share a lot of your guys' concerns, but I think that I think that this is a situation where we're trying to make the best of maybe a not great situation, and this is something that I think is doable. I mean, it is not the most comfortable situation, sure, but I also think that this might be a good solution for a part of the building that's vacant right now. So, yeah.
Okay. Any additional comments? Hearing none, I guess if we could take a roll call vote.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Kristen Clark,
No.
Peter Dewan,
No.
Michael Kruger,
Yes.
yes, George Lahanas,
Yes.
and Jeff Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Stevens.
Yes.
That passes 4-2.
Okay.
Thank you. We will move on to, actually, there were no committees, so we can skip over items 9.1 through 9.3. And I don't believe there was a parking task force meeting.
There was a parking task.
There was.
Oh, there was.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that, Michael?
Yeah, I can speak to it briefly. We basically went over all the numbers, saw how amazingly in debt this year the parking system is, and how down it is compared to last year and previous years. And we listened to a number of different ideas from staff. Tom Karenbach presented a number of ideas about how to utilize some of the underused spaces around town. Ultimately, nothing was recommended because we did not have a quorum. So it was just more of a conversation about some of those ideas. And I think that they're going to be, staff's going to be taking it to City Council, I believe, at the next meeting.
Great. Thank you, Michael. How about the Downtown Management Board? Was there a
Yeah,
summary?
I guess I can speak to that. Yeah, I can speak to that too. I think we had 2 meetings actually since the last time the DBA met. The first one was a special board meeting to recommend approval of, I don't know, somewhere around $2,500 to go towards holiday decorations in the downtown. And the most recent meeting, highlights, gift card. Yeah. So we looked into, our staff presented us a gift card program that was going to be used or could be opted into by any business in the downtown at no cost to the business and no cost to the city as well. And so the idea is to sort of start a downtown gift card program to help all the businesses out during the holiday times here. The way they make money is basically they charge a small fee to the purchaser of the gift card. But the theory is that, you know, we'll get a number of hopefully business leaders, big corporations to maybe purchase them for all of their staff, you know, as Christmas presents, that sort of thing.
That's really cool.
That sounds
Yeah,
like great.
it's actually a pretty cool program.
That actually sounds really nice. So.
And then I think I'm sure we talked with Adam about the downtown business stuff, and I think that was really about it. Those were the main things.
Thank you, Michael. Really good stuff. Any board member comments or concerns? Hearing none, move to adjourn, or I'm sorry, Adam, you had another item?
I just wanted to update you guys. I meant to do it earlier in staff communications about the infrastructure project that was approved at council on Tuesday for the Evergreen area. Essentially just aligning Albert Avenue, creating some temporary parking and other parking for future projects. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. And then also on Tuesday, MSU, FCU, City Council extended purchase and sales agreement timeline to give additional time for some easements that may need to occur for that project.
So the work on Evergreen, when will that commence?
I believe it's supposed to kick off really soon. I believe in November this month. Correct me if I'm wrong. If anyone's
when will that be wrapped up?
I'm not quite sure. Tom, do you recall the exact timeline? Are you there? You are.
Yes, I am. Yeah. So so essentially, it's the infrastructure work, the sewer up Evergreen, as well as the realignment of Albert are the main thrust of the project. The council approved the contract on Tuesday. It'll take a few weeks to spin up the contractor. We're going to have several meetings with the contractor. We're going to allow some meetings with any of the stakeholders in the area. And I would imagine we're probably looking at early December in terms of breaking ground at this point, although it's still a bit of a moving target. The contract ends June 30th. But I think the expectation is that the work would be done prior to that.
And one other question, I'm presuming that the work that's going to be done is not going to conflict with whatever may or may not come of the proposed development project from River Caddis and or the credit union.
Conflict? No, they'll need to be coordinated, certainly. You know, as that area is going to change, there is some flexibility still in the design to accommodate for something else to possibly occur on Albert. But that's something that certainly would need to be coordinated between all of the area stakeholders, the Department of Public Works and our contractor. So there is some flexibility if there is, you know, additional changes for the design. But notwithstanding that, we do have an approved design.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? board member comments, staff? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you, everyone.